You sure? Have to time this now. Imagine if the sim crashed. CTD, what? Right, let's see what happens. Fingers crossed. Ended abruptly, but it was supposed to. That was the music. Look at the state of this thing. It's very pretty. It's very nice. Me hands were shaking because I have to fix my controller using a cable tie. But apart from that, it's grand, right? So this is it. HJet, community, HJet. Now that you've met, well, we're going to have an up close and personal look at this. Now, a couple of caveats to get out kind of straight away, right? This aircraft, it's pre-release, so it's not the finished product. So if you do see anything kind of weird and wonderful and, odd, well, fear not, because it's still being actively worked on. In actual fact, Marwan has said this version that I have, it's a handful of versions behind where he's at. So if you do see anything that's kind of strange or something that doesn't look 100% spot on yet, in particular when it comes to the visuals, it's grand. It'll be done and sorted and fixed before everything is released, right?
2016, I was learning 3D modeling and I wanted to do something interesting. So I was looking for your typical red race car models. And I came across, at that time, the Honda Jet got a certification. And I just saw pictures of it and I found it extremely interesting. I've never seen an aircraft that looks like it. The engine pliance, the interestingly weird looking nose with the bulbous cockpit. It just looked so awesome and I got infatuated with it. And I kind of started working on it like right away. Mm-hmm. First of all, I didn't intend to have it in the sim initially. But then I reached the point where I'm getting into more and more details, and I'm a big time sim fan. I mean, like since 2004. So I said, okay, let's see what it takes to get an aircraft inside the sim. And that was at a time of prepared and FSX. So the journey started from then, trying to get an aircraft functional and then going in and checking in, okay, how do we make this work in FSX? How can I connect the battery to the lights? How can I? So, and it kept progressing from there on until Microsoft Flight Simulator was released, and I was like very close to a completed kind of product
Mhm.
or prepared, and then the Microsoft Flight Sim got announced and just put everything on hold because the next big thing is coming. And then it came, and now we're here, a year and a half almost after the sim is released, and happy to finally see the aircraft.
There's not many references you can kind of draw on a 3D model of this. I mean, this was pretty much all your own work from start to finish, right?
Yes, absolutely. And especially it was at the time that information on the jet itself is quite scarce.
Mhm.
No blueprints, don't have the detailed CAD models or something. So a lot of the time, just you're going off pictures and relying on eyeballing skills. But the jet itself, it's a huge performer, right?
Mhm.
It's designed for a single pilot operation, and basically it has an amazing performance. It's kind of the aircraft that I would personally dream to own at this stage of my life. you know, like I would never dream. Okay, I like obviously I love all the big jets and stuff, but I would obviously never dream to own a 737 unless like I stumble on a big fortune and get a VBJ or something. But I mean, like it's an aircraft that I could see myself like actually putting to use in missions, flying friends, family around, going for a business meeting, etc. So I was infatuated that it's by design a single pilot aircraft that can travel at 43,000 feet and can look amazing while doing it.
Mhm. Mhm.
So, and the engine mounts. I mean, like this is the single defining feature of this aircraft because what they did is that now you don't have to fill the backside of the fuselage area with unneeded connections to the engines, and you gain a lot of space in the back.
Mhm.
You also move the engines away from the fuselage, so you get like less vibrations, less noise. It's uh, very quiet here in the cabin of an HJet.
Mhm.
And as per our pilots that were in the test program, it is in its class. It's one of the quietest jets out there.
It's absolutely incredible. So, when it comes to releasing an aircraft, or building an aircraft, and I can only imagine the amount of hours literally you spent building this thing, tweaking this, um, releasing this into the wild, as it were, and that kind of set the tone, if you like, for the mad trailer, right? You're releasing it into the wild, the whole tip of the cap to David Attenborough, but what's it like for you? Like, what's the feeling like to say, look, you've spent so much time on this. Like, you're looking at things and you're just like, yeah, and we're looking at things going, ooh, look at this, or yeah, that looks really nice. It's got to feel kind of special then when you see some of the reactions straight away from people saying, oh wow, this is pretty impressive.
Yeah, that's kind of correct. You see, after a while, when looking for something for thousands and thousands of hours, you just see the flaws. So it's always refreshing to see it from a different perspective. It's always extremely scary to see it from a different perspective because it's like, okay, this has been in my hard drive for so long, and it's like we're having a secret affair no one knows about, and all of a sudden now it's out in the wild, and people are going to be using it. One thing that I'm really excited about, like people going in and poking around and within a lot, well, I think a lot of cool stuff inside that I'm hoping people could find out eventually. But it is scary. I mean, like the development process, it was awesome. I fell in love, and I can tell you this: I can do this full time if it permits. The development process was painful. There's a multitude of skills that one has to learn to be able to get a fully functional aircraft. I mean, like obviously the texturing, modeling, sounds, the flight dynamics, and then an additional skill that I learned while working on the HJet is the programming aspect. I went ahead like and I learned HTML, and I think this is like a skill that can carry over in other areas of life.
Mhm.
It's been a wonderful process, and I'm madly in love with the process, to be honest, and I'm hoping a bit of success with the HJet. Sorry,
Yeah.
and because I want to move to other projects, there are things that are quite cool and I want to be there for the long run. For example, I like one part of the nuance. For example, is the startup time
Mhm.
of the engines, right? The HJet had a very quick startup time. It basically from cold and dark to full engines running in exactly 20 seconds. Once you hit that start engine button, exactly 20 seconds it's on. And it was quite difficult to, to do that before, and I had to request from Asobo to give us some control to be able to do it because sometimes it's not there. It's not designed for a jet engine to, start up in 20 seconds.
Mhm.
So we went into a lot of details. I mean, the flight dynamics, it took a long time to get it right, to get it within the feel, uh, from the feedback of the pilots that, hey, this works as expected. If I give it, let's say, 52% and one on an approach, I'm expecting to see 120 knots with full flaps configuration. Yeah, that's correct now. So things like that. It's just very iterative, fine tuning after fine tuning after fine tuning until you reach a point where the pilots are happy,
Mhm.
and then you can breathe in a sigh of relief, and we go to our users and say, okay, so our pilots are happy. We need to make you happy. Tell me everything that you don't like about this aircraft. Tell me what you don't like about the model. Tell me what you don't like about the interaction, and
Mhm.
start working our way out from there. So you go from this crude, when you put a programmer, for example, on a user interface design job, and he gives you something that is kind of functional, but it is extremely ugly. So it it took a lot of time to try and get some things more refined, for the end user to get in and feel that, okay, this might be user friendly, right?
Mhm. It is.
So
It's like I can imagine you'd feel somewhat vulnerable, right? I mean, it's like yes, everything's as you see it, as you want to see it, and then people are going to come back and say, "Yeah, you're half a degree off here," or that door, that should be 11.7 seconds. Yours is 11.5, unusable. We can't use it. So I imagine it's just you got to have patience, right?
yeah, actually, I'm waiting for the Revit counts, the head count in my Revit.
So with the exterior, you've a lot of stuff going on here. I mean, this is going to ship with a number of liveries. You've included all the beautiful animations of the doors, and even to show the doors opening and closing. I mean, you look how smooth that transition is. I mean, that's fantastic, and it's just everything. We've seen other developers where they'll add open and closing doors, but like you wouldn't want to catch yourself in it. This it's perfect. It's beautiful animations. The timing of it is all spot on. What was the decision making there? Because again, it's one thing to make it look nice, to make it sound nice, and eventually make it fly nice. This is very different because you're now getting into animations, right? So, like, what was that process like?
Yes. So to get animations, I mean, right timing, and it has like multiple steps. It's a bit tricky. So basically, like what you do, try to find a video
Mhm.
somewhere of someone opening a door and of an HJet, and it was not an easy task. I had to look a lot to find like the full from opening all the way up till for it to go down, and just basically like eyeballing the timing and eyeballing the different steps of different things, and hopefully, cross your fingers that, okay, I think I got it right this time.
Here's the thing, right? When it comes to then the systems modeling, right? And there's
Yes.
tons of systems on this. This is a
Yeah.
custom built avionics package, and you've kind of you got the help, I think, through using the G3000, right? So you had to recode this yourself, and even the way the screens are displayed, you had to edit all of this based on the feedback from the real HondaJet pilots, right?
Yes, exactly. So, for example, in the HJet, you don't get like a full coverage PFD. So it's basically like a 2/3 to 1/3 split. So basically, what you're seeing, and also like the PFD of the HJet is actually different than what you typically find in, let's say, a TBM or a Cirrus aircraft. So I had to go in and do the PFD. It's more or less like completely custom, with its own, crew alerting and information system. With the split on, I mean, this left screen, it's able to display the aircraft systems display. It's able to display checklists, etc. So you get this kind of split, and I mean, visually, the PFD, along with the cast system and the buttons and interactions, it is very closely designed to mimic the HJet's actual avionics suite. Uh, Additionally, like we have the checklist system in uh, to like on that left part, and so basically, like the whole custom, because there's a lot of custom stuff here. Basically, the whole PFD screen, the two screens, the engine displays, the right-hand side touchscreen controller. This is completely custom. The vertical situation display and the whole VNAV system is completely custom. I've included in and built in and baked in the working title G3000 navigation suite. I did a couple of minor tweaks for it to be able to have it compatible with the VNAV functionality that has been added in. But the underlying navigation is provided by the working title G3000. Aircraft systems, interactions with the aircraft, interaction with the aircraft system, even the sim options, etc., are all done via this custom right-hand side touchscreen controller.
And here's the thing, you mentioned earlier on, this aircraft was designed for single pilot operation. You had to custom build the logic whereby this thing kind of looks after itself, so far as your exterior lights, for example. When you start up the aircraft, your nav lights will be on. Once it senses movement, taxi lights come on. Once it comes onto the runway threshold, the landing lights turn on. I mean, this thing is very aware of what it's doing, and you've managed to code that into this. And it works. I mean, I was like, no, I've nothing left to do. This thing controls all the lights for me, and it works. It's like, how did they do that? You know?
Absolutely. Actually, the automatic lighting features, I mean, the exterior lighting is one of my favorite features of the HJet. It was not easy to code in, I tell you that, but a lot of work has gone in, so the user or the pilot doesn't need to do anything, right? You just leave everything here in norm and never worry about the lights again. All right, your battery is on, you have your nav light. Your engines are on, your beacons are turning on automatically. You're moving or you're starting to taxi, your taxi lights are on, you're on the runway, your landing lights are on, your recognition lights are on. So it kind of takes away the burden of it. And it's actually fun to see the different, on the status screen, like the different lights going on and off automatically, going back and forth. So it's actually one of my favorite features of the HJet, and I think it's very unique in that regard.
There's another thing here. So we're having a quick look at the night lighting, right? And I have huge respect for this because I've seen some of this getting worked on before. Thankfully, we're on the GPU, lads, all as well. We won't drain the batteries for the moment. But you guys can see even on the yokes, you can see this blue tint which is coming off the main controls, and you can see the reflection coming in from the main floodlight over our head, and even how the light appears. This is all additional textures you had to draw onto these controls, right? I mean, you had to get the color right, the strength of the color right. I mean, this is amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, doing the lights was for me one of the most time-consuming aspect of development, because basically you change a small tiny value and you hit refresh, you wait for 3 minutes to see what you did, and you find out that you broke things, right? And you have to do it again. So it's basically extremely iterative, but I mean, it turned out well. It was time. I mean, getting the light right to an extent was one of the most tiring aspects of making the aircraft. To get the reflections right, you have to go in, like turn on the light, modify. I mean, the intensity of the light, go and modify the reflectivity of the materials, the color, the base colors of the materials again, just to get the reflections correct. It was a very, very iterative process, but fun nonetheless, as always. everything is managed in the background. The relays are automatic. The switchover for the electrical system is automatic, for example. So same goes for anti-icing. You don't need to do anything for the anti-icing other than just turning on and off the anti-ice for the engines. Everything else, like the wing anti-ice, the tail anti-ice, the windshield anti-ice, everything else is automated. It's doing things in the background, right? But you don't really have to interact with it.
It's just like it's. Do you trust it? Will it do the thing you want it to do?
So far, it did it to an extent. To an extent, as much as I trust my coding, yes.
It's absolutely incredible, and like again, like that level of automation, it you just fly the plane, and like it comes with a fully fledged autopilot, and with the TCS, with the touch panels here, well, they work perfectly. I mean, you have everything from your normal maps, your flight plans, your chart integration is there. It's absolutely fantastic. I'm loving it. I think it's great to see this level of, I call it handiness. So you don't have to go through everything if you don't want to, which is great. It's this thing is a lot of fun, and like from some of the systems you put in, so you do have a status page that'll show you kind of where everything is out, where it's at. It goes through where the lights, if they're on or off, the circuit breakers, everything is where it should be, and your doors, right? Then we go to the environmental controls, and there was even something here you had to custom code how long it took to heat the cabin and so on and so forth, wasn't it?
Yes, actually. So basically, like the user has control over two things: the temperature, the target temperature, and he has the option to control the fan speed. Obviously, it can be automatic. This is simulated. So the user or the pilot will set up a target speed, and you will see the fans and hopefully hear the fans as well. Picking up speed, trying to reach that colder speed, colder temperature that you selected for the cabin or for the cockpit, or the other way around. See the fans going a little bit down, letting in more of that hot bleed air from the engines to heat the cabin a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
So that's actually it was a fun feature to put in.
It's incredible.
Yeah. So I mean, like the systems are quite we're quite interesting to do, and I think they add a lot of depth to and fun to the aircraft, because you can see everything happening in the background. You can monitor it, everything. Even the fuel transfer is basically automated. All the controls on the valves is completely automated. You can override them. This is one of the few controls that you get as a captain of the ship.
Mm-hmm.
But you can just leave them on automatic and everything else will happen. The anti-ice is automatic. It detects that you're in icing conditions. It will kick on the anti-ice until you just let it go.
Right. The next bit of stuff we're going to hear is, well, hopefully, I wonder, I could break it. Yeah, it's me. But let's see what happens. So I'll disappear me. You're probably tired of this face, right? And don't mute yourself while talking. The production value was like all right until that moment when I pressed mute and continued to talk. And it can happen to anyone. Right, so hide me, get rid of my voice, and we'll just listen to the aircraft. So do stand by.